New York Times best-selling author Jodi Picoult has a new book out, and you have an opportunity to not only get a signed copy, but to meet her in person.
Yes, she has an event with the Mark Twain House on Thursday. It's a conversation with author Ann Leary, and we are so excited to welcome Jodi Picoult now to Great Day, Connecticut. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I got to take you back because you went to Smithtown High School East. I went to Comac High School South.
Wow, we're almost rivals.
Yes,
wow.
and we're only 1 year apart, which is amazing. You're a little bit younger than me.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, you know, it's always nice to see another fellow Long Islander.
Yeah,
how's that?
You went on to fame and fortune. Unbelievable. You went to Princeton. You got your master's at Harvard. You're a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you. Some days are good days, yeah.
You know, you have this new book out, Wish You Were Here. And first of all, tell us a little bit about what it's about, because I feel like it's mirroring what we're all going through in a way.
Yeah, so it's the story of a woman named Diana O'Toole who thinks she has her whole life planned out. Everything's going exactly according to schedule. She works for Sotheby's as an art specialist. She's about to be promoted. She has a terrific boyfriend who's a surgical resident in New York City, and she just knows that he's going to propose to her on their bucket list trip to the Galapagos, which they're taking the next day. But the book opens on March 13th, 2020, which is the day that New York City shut down. And when Diana gets back to her apartment, her boyfriend says, I'm not allowed to leave the hospital because they think something big is coming, but you should go. The trip is paid for. And she winds up in the Galapagos when Isabella Island shuts down for what she thinks is going to be 2 weeks and what turns out to be much longer than that. And she has to experience what it's like to be in paradise when the rest of the world is on fire, and learn a lot about herself and her goals when she realizes that a lot of the things that she wanted, maybe she never really wanted at all, which I think is something that we've all learned in 2020. We've really come to terms with the fact that the things that we thought were success, things like promotions and titles and degrees and, slots on bestseller lists, maybe they weren't really as important as your health, your safety, having food, having shelter, being able to hold the hand of someone you love when they're very sick. You know, we didn't realize these were privileges that we were supposed to be happy to have until they were taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is incredible and so timely too, right?
Well, that was my other thing. I was wondering, what's your writing process? And with specifically with this book, did you start it after the pandemic, or did you start writing it when you were in quarantine?
So I had a really hard pandemic. I have asthma, and so I was really scared. Wow. And for 15 months, when I locked down. I didn't leave my house, and my husband was kind of our conduit to the world. And it was really hard for me to remember who I was and what I did, and going to my office helped with that. And in November of 2020, I decided I wanted to write about the last year and everything that we'd lost and everything that had changed, but I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And then I heard a story, a real life story about a man who got stranded in Machu Picchu when he went there to visit the historic site and the country closed down because of the pandemic. Instead of going back to Japan, he stayed, and he wound up becoming part of the community, teaching martial arts to the kids, and eventually did get to see the historic site. But I thought, you know, that's really interesting to me. I can work with that kind of story. And since I've never been to Machu Picchu, but I have been to the Galapagos, I thought, let's substitute that bucket list destination. And I realized pretty quickly, too, that the Galapagos, of course, is the seat of the theory of evolution. And that's all about how species, when faced with adversity, have to learn how to adapt. And honestly, is there a better description for 2020?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I got to ask, Jodi, when you were you wrote The Lobster Which Misunderstood at 5 years old. Did you ever
That's
think?
what my mom tells me.
Did you ever think 40 million copies of your books are in print worldwide, 34 different languages? That's a pretty amazing accomplishment. Did you ever think you'd get to this level?
I didn't. You know, I loved writing, and I had so many teachers who encouraged me to write. I had a family that encouraged me to write, but I had never met someone who was a living, breathing author and who could survive, being an author and make a living out of doing it. And it's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of luck, and I'm really, really grateful that I have had the chance to wake up every morning and do what I love to do.
Do you have a favorite book?
I do. My favorite book is Small Great Things. I wrote it a few years ago. It's about racism and white privilege. And the reason it's my favorite is because I learned so many things about myself during the writing of that book that were not very flattering, that I really needed to improve upon. I didn't really acknowledge my privilege as a white person until I began to dive deep into it. And that's because as white people, we don't really have to. It really changed the way I see the world, the way I sort of move through anti-racist efforts in my daily life, and the conversations that I choose to have. Because I wrote that book, I'm a better person. So right now, that one's my favorite.
Well, we think you're terrific, and your event is this Thursday, December 2nd at 7 p.m. It's at the Immanuel Congregational Church on Woodland Street in Hartford. That's right across the street from the Mark Twain House. You can visit marktwainhouse.org for more information and to purchase tickets. Thank you, Jodi, so much. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, the new book sounds great, too.
Right?
I mean, we can all relate, right?